Happy Friday, the 19th of July, everybody. This is 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden. This is Moving Home with Charlie. Just give me one moment while I make sure that the Instagram feed's gone live as well. And there we go. And could you also please just tell me that I'm in an unusual location, so I don't know what my internet speed is like, and I don't know what the audio is like. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Is everything okay? Anyone at all, just a thumbs up or a yes in the comments would be fantastic, because there's quite a few there already. Sorry about the audio. It's really bad, isn't it? Anyway, anyone at all, give me a yes, thumbs up. You can hear me. Cool. Thank you, Briley and Rick on X. Thank you. Okay, we have a lot to get through in today's 5 Fact Friday. I'm going to just start off, for those of you who haven't got time to watch the whole video, by going through just the headlines. And the biggest headline of the week is fact number one, which is that Landmark Information Group have reported in their residential property trends report that sales agreed are down 32% and completions are down 40% in volume terms compared to pre-pandemic 2019 levels. And this is impactful news for everybody. And it reflects what I thought was really happening. Rightmove put its annual misleading asking price report out. The asking prices it's reporting aren't misleading, but the fact they refer to them as house prices is misleading, because there's very little, if any, connection between newly listed asking prices and actual sold prices. There's just, especially in this market. That's number two, but they are falling on average, but I'll show you the breakdown. Number three, the ONS put out its population survey and showed that the UK population rose at its fastest rate, I think, ever in a year. The net increase in population was 650,000. But strangely enough, and I'll show you the figures, the number of new builds that were completed in 2023 accommodated 90% of that increase, and we only had a 23,000 new homes shortfall. So there's a lot to discuss about whether actually just building more homes is the answer to everything we need or not. Next fact is that the Molior report put out the fact that total new construction starts are now lower than they were in 2009, just after the global financial crisis. That's fact number four. And number five, the King's Speech, the opening of Parliament, reintroduces the Renters' Rights Bill. It was the Renters' Reform Bill. It's now called the Renters' Rights Bill. And I'm going to go through the details of that as well. But in summary, what we've got this week is a wide selection of facts affecting both the sales and the lettings market. And there's overlap between those two, which is, on balance, encouraging and positive news for buyers. It was already a buyer's market, but almost everything out this week shows that it's getting even more in favor of buyers. If you are a seller, there's no good news at all. All of the metrics are moving against you if you are a seller. If you are a renter, then depending on how soon the government can deliver the changes they want to deliver, it's looking like good news for renters, especially in terms of rental security for tenants and the ability to challenge rent rises. If you are a landlord, well, it depends on which end of the landlord spectrum you're on, good or bad. Because if you are a really good landlord and you're not too high leveraged, then it's arguable that the market in the long term is going to continue to move in your favor. However, if you are a highly leveraged landlord, especially if you're a landlord looking to sell, and there was a big spike of those this week, then that's looking tougher. But all that is good news for buyers. Hello, Joanne, Ural Jones, Robert Jones, Imdadul, Hack, Tasmanian Devil, Eddie Clifton. Hi there, guys. Nice to see you all. Right, so that was a summary. And I'm about to go through all of the facts in detail. But just before I start that, I want to just give a quick summary of the overall state of the housing market. And that is that as everyone and anyone who's been watching it for the last couple of years knows, it's been struggling. Moving has got harder. In fact, it's got harder for everyone. So if you are a landlord renting properties out, void periods have increased. So it's getting slightly harder, not easier. Overall, there'll be landlords who'll be fine, will be renting stuff out like that. But the overall market health is moving, getting a bit harder for landlords, which is a bit easier for tenants, which is good. It's become harder and harder to sell. It's taking longer and longer to sell. Got some details and Rightmove stats in this on that topic. If you're a buyer, well, there's been this frustrating price standoff, hasn't there, where there are lots and lots of buyers out there, but they either can't or won't pay the unrealistic asking prices that are continually being propped up by nothing more so than Rightmove's monthly asking price index, which contains phrases like "we're near record highs," and first-time sellers especially will hear that and go, oh, record highs, so maybe we can believe the estate agent's overvaluation on our home. And then buyers are going, no, that's just no, we're not paying those prices, we can't pay those prices. Mortgage rates have, this isn't included in the facts, although it is a fact this week, is that there have been more lenders cutting mortgage rates. But when you look at the fact that completions are down 40% on pre-pandemic volumes, the main reason for lenders cutting mortgage rates is ferocious competition between each other. And that's obviously good news for buyers. And it's not going to hurt, and it will help transaction volumes. Unfortunately, there was a brief bit of, there are going to be rate cuts, there's going to be a rate cut. And already that's, oh, no, again, no, there aren't going to be rate cuts for a while. Now they've been pushed back. And now there's, as of this morning, less than 25% chance of a rate cut next month. Some people have been reporting it as rate cuts to be delayed. And I love that assumption, that because there was definitely going to be a rate cut, right? But now they've been delayed. The rate cuts that were going to happen have now been delayed. They were never going to happen. Anyway, overall, my assessment is that moving is going to continue to get harder before it gets easier again. Ignoring what prices are doing, moving is taking longer and longer and longer. If you are a buyer, first-time buyers at the moment, it's the best market it's been for quite a few years for you guys in many areas. Now, that's not to say it's easy, because you are still experiencing a lot of competition from downsizers, and prices at the first-time buyer level are holding up better or falling less than all other prices are. Anyway, let's just actually go through some of these facts now. Yeah, I mean, we've got the Halifax report that house prices have fallen. I haven't even included that this week. It's not the most important thing. And lenders lowering mortgage rates I've not included in this week's 5 facts. We've got 6 facts anyway. Without further ado, after 8 minutes of rambling, I will have a slurp of my cold tea and get into the first fact. So, first fact, number 1, Landmark Property Information Group. Now, this is really seismic, I think, and it's the first report that I think really reflects what's going on and shows you how difficult it is for movers. So, by the way, links to all of these reports and sources are in the link below, in the description below. If you're watching this somewhere where you can't get the links below, then go to my website, and on my homepage, mhwc.co.uk, the first blog post on my homepage is a link to all of these if you're watching within a week of this going out. So the part I've highlighted here says, when transactions do manage to progress to sold subject to contract, in other words, the seller has agreed a price to the buyer, levels are down 32% compared with Q2 2019. So that's 1/3 down actual sold subject to contract volumes. And they go on to say, but completion rates are around, or remain 40% below Q4 levels, Q4 2019 levels. So again, that shows you that there are still a lot of fall throughs happening. Okay, they go on to say that, without stating what it is, they go on to say the data suggests the market is poised for a potential upturn. They don't say what that data is, and to me, that feels like baseless optimism. But when it's baseless, it just leads to disappointment. And if you think about it, looking back over the last couple of years, we've heard this again and again. It's looking better. It's looking good. It's looking better, and it's just got gradually. It's like it's sort of slowly rotting in terms of transaction volumes. A high level of listings coupled with moderate growth in completion rates from a very, very low base, and the increasing availability of competitive mortgage deals, yes, all point to a possible return to more dynamic conditions. I hope so. I hope they're right, because when transaction volumes are this low and this difficult, it's bad for everyone, buyers and sellers and landlords and tenants and agents, and everyone needs to move. So that's bad for movers individually, and it's bad for the market as a whole. It's bad for the economy, you name it. It's not good, and we all need it to get better. Right, the next fact was Rightmove's. I did a whole video. So the last video on this channel was my in-depth dig into the Rightmove monthly house price index. I will try not to get over carried away again, but they shouldn't call it a house price index. They just shouldn't, because people's interpretation of house prices means the prices at which houses are selling. And that is not what this index does in any way, shape, or form. There is absolutely zero connection to what houses are selling for in this index. This index is made up entirely of newly listed asking prices only, before price reductions. And so it's as high as it could possibly be, and it's around £100,000 higher than the average actual transaction price according to the Land Registry. So it's extremely unhelpful, and I really wish Rightmove would stop doing this, and I wish they would rethink this index, because this index is arguably the biggest single contributing factor to falling transaction volumes, as evidenced by Rightmove's own comments. Which I did have lined up, and now I can't find them. One moment, where are they? Give me a second, because this is definitely worth showing you, right? Here we are. So Rightmove reported, actually, let me just go back and show you the prices first. So what they show is that the asking prices of first-time buyer properties actually went up. Can you see that? They went up a couple of £100 between June and July. So first-time buyers. Second steppers went down about £350. And top of the ladder properties actually went down by about £8,000 or £9,000. So there's three different parts of the market doing different things. All right, as you can see there, and there's no more detail than that in terms of breaking down by price level. But having put out this monthly index where whenever they get the chance, they talk about record prices, sellers who are looking to wonder what their house is worth will just hear the phrase record prices and assume it means that they're going to get a record price for their house, but it's record asking prices. And without reporting on the difference between the asking prices and the sold prices, it is misleading. I'm not saying it's intentional, and based on what Rightmove's put out on this this article, here we are. So, danger of pricing your home too high and why it's backfiring on overambitious sellers. Homes that have reduced price are twice as likely to sales fall through. And this article goes on to warn about overpricing. Well, honestly, guys, just own it. You're the guys most behind this overpricing, because agents we know overprice to compete with each other to get business, and they use your index at Rightmove to go, look, Rightmove says it's record prices. There's the data you need. Now, do you believe me? Sign my long-sell agency contract. And it's leading to slow transaction volumes, and it's just so damaging, Okay, enough about that. But yeah, here were the. So you're much less likely to sell at all. You're 1 1/3 times more likely to sell at all if you don't overprice your house. You're twice as likely to have your agreed sale fall through if you initially had to reduce your price. And if it does eventually sell, it will take 3 times longer than correctly priced homes to sell. Now, Rightmove's own time to sell, I think, is about 5 months average. So faster properties selling around 2 to 3 months. Other properties actually selling around more like 6 to 8 months transaction time. So for those of you watching, wondering how to price your home, I say this every single month, and it doesn't seem to make any difference, as the vast majority of sellers still come to the market believing that they've been realistic and still wondering why they're getting no viewings. I don't know how else to tell you guys. Anyway, on to the next fact. So we had the state opening of Parliament, the King's Speech, which contained, it's written by the government, there we are, a speech written by the government and contains an outline of its policies and proposed legislation for the new parliamentary session. Now, I'm going to use a blog post from the Independent Landlord. So this is someone I know, Suzanne Smith, who is a lawyer and a landlord and runs this blog and a podcast called Good Landlording. And she's done a very helpful blog post on the summary of this. So I just want to go through the summary of what is contained in the bill. And after that, I'm going to give you a comment from Suzanne about how likely she thinks it is to go ahead. So the abolition of Section 21 no-fault evictions. Lots of renters will cheer for that. New Section 8 grant for possession. So that's intended to give landlords stronger, in the right circumstances, it's intended to give landlords stronger rights to reclaim their property. Number 3, ability for tenants to challenge rent increases. Number 4, ending of rental bidding wars. I've got no idea how they're planning to do that, and I don't think that's workable. Number 5, because that's just getting in the way of the free market. You can't do that. It always ends badly, always. And rental caps don't work. As Merrin Somerset Webb wrote about on Bloomberg this week, rent caps don't work. They backfire. Number 5, right to request a pet. Number 6, applying a decent homes standard to the private rent sector. Can you believe that's not already the case? 7, applying Awaab's law to the PRS so that small kids don't die from mold and damp in properties that aren't being taken care of. It's already been applied to social homes, I believe. They want to apply it to the private rent sector, which is good. The creation of a digital private rented sector database. That's been attempted once before and it didn't work. So I don't know what they're planning to do differently this time. A private rented sector ombudsman. That'll be good. Anti-discrimination and new enforcement and investigatory powers. So that's the summary of all of the items contained in the King's Speech that are going to happen to the renters market. And I asked Suzanne the question, are the new government going to face the same challenges that stopped the old government getting this bill through? And Suzanne's response was, and I have it here for you. So Suzanne said, they will face the same challenges with the private renter sector as the Conservatives, including the problems with the county courts, but with the added issue that landlords are now even more nervous about the abolition of Section 21. There is still a huge amount to do on the detail of delivering renters' rights, as so much has been left pending by the previous government. For example, the outcome into the consultation on the decent home standard for the private rented sector, what the landlord database and ombudsman will look like, and the approach to pets, etc. So what Suzanne's saying is there's an awful lot of detail that has not been gone into yet, and that the current government is going to face the same and perhaps even more challenges than the previous government faced, which actually prevented them from getting this bill through, even though they had it in their King's Speech repeatedly. So let's see. I have to say, in the last 7 days, I would say that the Labour government is talking a tougher game on this than I ever heard the Tories talk. Keir Starmer's waded in, making comments about it. Rachel Reeves has, although I don't agree with what she's saying. I don't think she's getting it right. And there was Pat McFadden on Radio 4 this week, sounding very compelling about how determined they are to overcome these problems. Now, that's fine. It's good to hear them sounding determined, but without saying what they're going to do differently, I don't know how they're going to overcome the challenges. They've got a bigger majority in Parliament, and they might just use that as sheer brute force to push through legislation people don't want. Let's see. On to the next fact. Where do we get to? So we've done completion rates, Rightmove's prices, population growth. Here we are. So the ONS put out figures this week with official population growth figures. Whoopsie. The population of England and Wales, I haven't got the actual figures there. So the population increased by 610,000 in 2023, according to the ONS's figures a few days ago. So the average occupancy figure is 2.4 people per household, according to global data. So given that, it means that the 254,000 new homes will be required to absorb that fastest yearly population increase in 75 years. And actually, 231,000 homes were built, according to Savills, in 2023. So we were only 23,000 new dwellings short of accommodating the population increase, despite the record net migration numbers. So this is a bit of a head twister, because, like, hang on a second, does that mean we actually don't have a shortage of houses overall? And again, the thing to understand, the most important thing to understand, is that there is a national overall average figures, which is what these are, right? But nobody anywhere is living in an area where the national numbers apply. It's local everywhere. It's different everywhere. So there absolutely are places where more new homes need to be built, and fast. And there are places where there are too many new homes sitting unsold, thousands of them. But those two facts are never talked about when talking about national figures. But what the national figures show is that even with this very large population increase, we have enough homes, or nearly enough homes, but not in the right places. And we still have a huge number of long-term, empty, unoccupied, unused homes that could be released if the government wants to. All of it unpopular, but there we go. The point is sheer house building. And I know that I've criticized Labour about how you're going to build these numbers. And I've also said that private house building is not the answer. We need social house building in the areas where government most needs it to meet its own social obligations. And it should be separated out from the private sector. Let the private sector build homes where they want to, where they can get permission to make money. And the government should meet its own housing obligations and stop relying on the private rented sector to do so. And if it did that, it would also ease prices. But because of the level of influence house builders have at government level, we've seen what happens, haven't we? It doesn't tend to go well. But just to recap this basic fact, even facing record population growth, we met 90% of the need for that with new house building in 2023. Now, the next fact I want to come on to is the fact that, here we are, total construction starts. So that was 2023, but look, it's actually fallen since then. So new construction starts are lower than they have been since 2009. And also social homes, I haven't got the link here, but the social home building starts are 29% down. And so there is a problem where there's this momentum and inertia of just falling house building volumes, both in the private and in the social home sector, which means that where the problem is already bad, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'm marginally more optimistic and hopeful that this government will deliver some improvements that the Tories didn't than I was a week ago, which I'm very, very happy to say. marginally more. I'm still skeptical, and I still don't think they're going to make the difference they think they're going to make. But I am lifted. My spirits are lifted by how tough a game they are talking. Okay. Last fact number 6 of the week is Lloyds Bank saying that they're going to convert old offices and data centers into new social housing projects. I'm fascinated to see how this turns out. So this is Lloyds Bank's own X account. We're planning to convert our old offices and data centers into new social housing projects. We're currently identifying suitable housing partners across the UK who will be responsible for redeveloping the sites, converting our old offices into new social housing. Well, that's got to be welcomed, hasn't it? And there's a link to that there. So, guys, you can go see all these articles yourself. This is just a few days ago they published this. The first redevelopment in Pudsey can create up to 80 new homes to increase supply of good affordable homes in the UK. Well, that's got to be welcomed. I wonder if there's a sting in the tail. I wonder if the devil's in the detail. Now, do we have any questions in the comments? Anyone got any questions for me? Let's have a look. Yeah, I did do a slurp. Sorry about that. A bit late, wasn't it? Someone whose name is in a script that I can't read says, question, why are these landmark statistics different to the stats given by Chris Watkins in his weekly stat show? The answer is they're different data sets. But I actually had exactly that thought when I saw these numbers too. The stats that Chris Watkins has in his weekly stats show come from an property industry data company whose clients are mostly large estate agents. I'll let you figure out for yourself what that means. Jack Waldron says, I work for a large plaster manufacturer and we have had a massive drop-off in sales for the past 4 months. I thought we were building more houses, signs of recession, I think. Yeah. Today we had the June sales, retail sales down, outward down, but that I think was arguably because of the election. Craig Wood says the market is completely dried up by me. The next to nothing decent coming on. Only properties that appear to be coming on are from landlords and the places are shitholes. And that's in South Wales. Morning, Craig. Yes, thank you. Doing well, thank you. Andy's Kitchen Garden says, we were in a 7-chain house move. A 7-house chain move. Okay. Second from the bottom. The person who we were buying from backed out just before contract. Apparently they could no longer get a mortgage. So you wasted money on a survey. Yeah, this is chains are really dangerous. And if you are buying and selling, and if it's an option to you, sell first, get your house sold, live somewhere temporarily with family or rented or something, and then buy as an unencumbered buyer and try and do chain-free transactions, because that sounds like a nightmare, Andy. I'm sorry to hear that. Craig says, how far along to your prediction do you think we are? Any revision to your prediction? First of all, it was never a prediction. I'd like to remind everyone that. It was always an expectation. I don't make predictions. It's what I expect. I don't make predictions. I never have made predictions, but I do have expectations. Now, my fairly infamous and notorious price expectation on house prices was that they would eventually, when they finish sliding, be down around 35% on average. Now, initially, I said that was the UK. I then excluded Scotland and Northern Ireland from that because those are markets I don't understand. I don't have any insight to. I don't know what their economies are doing. And it's England and Wales, not Scotland and Northern Ireland. I think the massive differential between price falls at the higher end of the market and lower price falls at the bottom end of the market are making an average that is misleading. In a word, am I changing my expectations? No. I've always said over however long it takes, and my guess would be 3 years. We're only 2 years into that. There's another year to go. It looks like it could take even longer than that. I've always said I don't know when the bottom happens. People have asked me when's the bottom, and I've said, well, my guess is 2025. The way everything's looking is just looking weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And there are still more people to come off their fixed rate mortgages. There's still no sign of any stimulus in the economy. Unemployment is still rising. The economy is still flatlining, even though it recently had an uptick in GDP, didn't it? I know, I get that. But no, and I am looking at, and I promise you, I'll have no hesitation to say, oh, actually, maybe not maybe as bad as I thought. I still think I'm still expecting to be that bad. I think the overall average of 35 is going to be much more heavily skewed towards higher end properties, where in some areas house prices have already fallen that much. There's no official data to back that up. This is based on anecdotes and reports and data that I've got access to. And there are regional differences as well. So it's very, very hard. But I think as more and more landlords sell up, and I've had an anecdote this week about one agent who had 5 properties on the market to rent. They couldn't rent, all with different landlords. And in the same week, they all came off the market and went on the market to sell. So it depends who buys them, whether or not they go into the hands of first-time buyers or other landlords. I think a lot of successful and wise and professional landlords who've been running their finances carefully are going to be snapping up bargains left, right, and centre, especially in auctions, because there's a lot more happening in auctions at the moment. So I think those kind of landlords are going to be snapping up. So some of those properties will be going back into the rental market. Some of them will be being bought by first-time buyers. So I don't think there's any harm at all in those landlords selling up. I think actually, because either they're going to go to other landlords and go back on the rental market, landlords who don't have such high exposure to interest rates and mortgage payments, so they won't be, they'll be able to be better landlords, or they're going to first-time buyers, which is good. SMO asks me, what are my opinion on the Zoopla property valuations? I cover this often. I've actually you can't trust or put any faith in automatic online property valuations. They are plus or minus 20%. They're just so inaccurate as to be useless. There are certain areas where they have very, very high density of very, very similar properties where they're slightly better, but everywhere else, and I've said this online on X. And by the way, if you're new, welcome. Thank you for following. I put more facts and more opinion and more data and more conversation out on X than I do anywhere else. Multiple times a day. I'm on X. It's where I engage the most with people who've got questions, that kind of stuff. So do follow me. Just look up Moving Home with Charlie on X to find me. Online automatic property valuation tools, algorithms, they cannot smell what your home smells like. And if your home has had vomiting children and incontinent pets in it for a few years, even if it was a new build 5 years ago, it's going to smell very different from another house that's had someone with a cleaning obsession and no pets or children in it. And those two identical properties will sell at different values for reasons that can't be detected by automatic property valuations. And that's why even an agent who comes round to your house will be making an estimate and a guess, because they don't know until you get competing buyers what it will actually sell for. So the only way to find out what your home is actually worth is to see what offers you can get on it. There is no other way. The nearest thing you can do otherwise is pay for a red book valuation. But for all the reasons I've talked about, overvaluing agents who are competing with each other for your business, Rightmove constantly puffing up the market endlessly, nobody reporting negative stuff. I mean, Halifax reported falling house prices and it was hardly touched by the news. And look at this Landmark report. I mean, this is a credible report from a credible organization. Not a single story in the news I could find about it. So Just looking through any other comments and questions here. Wow. Craig said, I had 2 viewings this week on X rentals. Both got pulled off the market and the landlords aren't renting them out, but are moving in. Right. That's absolute last resort. When landlords are trying to sell a rental property, well, so they try and rent it out. They can't rent it out, so they try and sell it. They can't sell it for enough to clear the mortgage. They've got no alternative left but to move in and live in it themselves and maybe sell their other home where they were living. Him again asks, so someone, him again 99 asks, looking at a home in Nottinghamshire, the vendor is asking the price 45% up since last sold in 2021. Are they being realistic? It's impossible to answer that question without knowing whether they've done something to the property. So if they've done nothing to the property, then no, they're not being realistic. If they put an extension on or conservatory or refurbished it, perhaps they are. They're impossible to know. Ben says Charlie should have adjusted his price target by inflation. I mean, looking at, if you're going to include inflation, there's already a lot more. House prices have fallen a lot more than is being reported. But the majority of people don't get to wrap their, when it comes to house prices, can't wrap their heads around the inflation effect on house prices as well. People just don't want to hear that their house value after inflation has actually been falling for quite a long time, especially if you've got flats in the southeast, right? They haven't increased in value for a very long time. I've gone through this lots of times with Alex. And yeah, but including inflation, overall house prices, when they finish falling, I think going to be about 50% down. I mean, that's an extreme scenario, but I can't see anything that averts that extreme scenario, especially given the saber rattling, the things that cause uncertainty and instability in the financial markets and stuff are not going away anytime soon. Anyway, chaps and chapasses, all of you, thank you very much for watching. Hope that's helpful. Have a great weekend. If you are a buyer, always, if you are a buyer, you want a home, you can afford one, you've got the money to buy one, just be out viewing. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view, because that is the only way you will find the bargains that are out there. The bargains that will sell for a long way below what the asking price is. They just don't want to lower the asking price. And there's an increasing number of properties like that. So look for the properties that have been sitting on the market for a long time. And if you think that even if the asking price is out of your reach, just call the agent up and go, how keen are those sellers on that property? Should I come and view it, or is there no point? And sometimes an agent will say there's no point, they're not going to go lower than that, in which case don't view it. And sometimes the agent will say, honestly, they're going to be keen to hear any offer, come and have a look. It's a bit of a lottery. You never know what you're going to get, but if you're not out there viewing, you won't find those bargains. And people who've been listening to this advice from me for the last couple of years are sending me messages on a regular basis going, I'm now in a home I never thought I could afford, thanks to your advice. If you are not out viewing, you are not moving. You're not even in the moving marketplace. Simply being registered with an agent, simply watching stuff happening on Rightmove, you are window shopping at best. You are in the fringes. You're not being taken seriously by agents. You need to be out viewing. And if you are, I promise you, this is the best buyer's market it's been for years. And even if you are in a strong market, it's still less strong than it was. Be out viewing. Be out viewing. If you are highly leveraged and you've got like a 90 or 95% mortgage, do not get into bidding wars. Just don't. Walk away, especially if you're going to need to move within 5 years or so, because the chances of negative equity are very high. But look for the properties that have been sitting on for a long time. Just, don't pin yourself down to, oh, we must have this exact kind of property. Just consider other property types. Consider slightly different locations, because what will happen when you start to broaden the property types you're considering is you'll start to see properties that you never imagined, where you go, hang on a second, this isn't in the location we wanted, but it's much bigger than we imagined, and actually that trade-off is worthwhile. So get creative in your search. Get out and view. Look at stuff. just to see what the market's doing, because every time you're viewing, you'll hear from agents about what the market's actually doing. And you'll hear things from agents that they will not put online or publish, and you won't hear them anywhere else. And what you need to know is, what's the market doing where you want to live? And there is no data for that. There is no online data for what the market is doing where you want to live yet. I'm working on it with the Best Agent House Price Index, which is getting closer to actually quite good things happening. But yeah, got to be out viewing. And if you're a seller and you want to know what's happening, the only question you should be asking agents is, what was your most recent exchange price? Some agents have access to local exchange price data that they don't volunteer because it doesn't support their overvaluing. But that's the question you should be asking. What are things exchanging at? What was the last property that exchanged or sold at auction that was like mine? What are the actual exchange prices? If you are a seller and you need to sell or want to sell and you want to know what's actually happening, do that. Actually, one of you had a follower who came up to you, bumped into in real life, John Murphy, how you doing? Who said that they were considering moving and selling. And thanks to hearing me about unrealistic overvaluations, when they really dug deep at what was happening in the local market, they realized, okay, actually the price isn't going to be what we thought it was. We're going to stay put. And they didn't go on the market. They didn't waste anyone's time, and just accepted that, okay, this is where we're going to live. So remember, if you're a seller, according to Rightmove, right, the ones who are talking the market up and then saying, but don't overprice. I mean, talk about mixed messaging, right? If you have to reduce your price, you automatically double the chances of your deal falling through, reduce the chances of it selling at all, and triple the average time to exchange. Let that sink in. If you have to reduce your price, your chances of selling at all will take much longer with fall throughs and at a lower price. And if you're a seller that's just worried, hang on, if I price it too low, maybe I could have got more. And that seems to be the fear that sellers have more. But yeah, maybe we only need one buyer. Maybe if we just, there is this irrational fear amongst sellers. And I've seen this in the eyes of my own friends. I'm still going to price it up there just in case. And they don't factor in what that will cost them in time and money. Don't do it, guys. Right, I will now wrap up by saying, if you need my help, if you want to book a video call with me, one-to-one video call, if you want to talk to my mortgage brokers, if you want to get your conveyancer lined up early, all of it on my website, mhwc.co.uk. And below this video, there's a link to my link tree that's got direct links to all the things that I just